When we think of luxury sedans, usually what comes to mind is the BMW 3 Series, the Audi A4, or this, the Mercedes-Benz C300. This one is actually completely new for 2022. But what about the other luxury brands? Cadillac, Genesis, Lexus, or Volvo? Is something like this Volvo S60 still considered an alternative to something like that? Or should you consider this first and foremost before one of the German rivals? Let's go for a drive and find out.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. Anxiety, filling up every space, no privacy, and silently, it could build and build until you finally see, whoa, it's taking over, damn no closure, moving closer. No exposure, I just wanna be a loner. Some can't stay sober, looking over all their shoulders, like moving boulders just to get out of the home. It sucks, I've had enough.
Starting things off in the Volvo S60, it is powered by a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and it now has a bit of help from a 48-volt mild hybrid system. It's not the type of hybrid system that allows you to drive on electricity alone, but it does help the engine with a little bit more get up and go. The total output is now 247 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Not quite as powerful as the engine in the Mercedes-Benz, but it's still pretty decent. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in this Volvo S60 with all-wheel drive takes 6.5 seconds according to Volvo. That's about half a second slower than the Mercedes-Benz C300, again according to Mercedes-Benz and their 0 to 100 kilometer an hour estimate. But like I said, for everyday driving, this engine has enough get up and go in this S60. Power comes in at really low RPMs and it pulls pretty hard all the way up to the 6,500 RPM redline. In the C300, it is still powered by a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, but it now has some help from a 48-volt mild hybrid system. This is the EQ Boost, which is the same system that is used in Mercedes' 6-cylinder engines. The total output for this powertrain is 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. With the help from this EQ Boost, the response from the engine is a little bit more immediate with this new generation of the C-Class. It also feels like as though it has power almost throughout the entire RPM range. It doesn't run out of steam as you get closer to the red line. Not that you probably will take your C300 all the way to the red line. If it said AMG on the back, then yeah, then you would. But of course, one of the best benefits of this EQ Boost system is the fuel economy. Now, unfortunately, you cannot drive just on electricity alone with this system because it's not that kind of hybrid system, but it will actually shut off the engine in certain conditions. So of course it will shut off the engine when you arrive at a complete stop, and the auto start stop system is absolutely seamless. Also, if you put the car into eco mode, then every time that you lift off the accelerator pedal and just coast, then the engine shuts off. This lets you go a little bit further without using any engine braking. Of course, as soon as you touch the throttle pedal or even the brake pedal, then the engine immediately fires up again. Just like the Mercedes, the Volvo S60's mild hybrid system can also shut off the engine when you're coasting. You do have to be in eco mode, again, just like the Mercedes, but switching between drive modes is a little bit more of a faff in this S60 than it is in the Mercedes. First, you have to go back to your home screen and then swipe left and then click on drive modes and then switch to eco mode. It was much simpler when they had that little rotary knob down here on the center console where you can switch between drive modes. I don't know why they made it so much more complex now. But anyway, every time that you take your foot off the throttle pedal, the engine shuts off, just like in the Mercedes, and as soon as you touch the throttle pedal again or the brake pedal, the engine fires up right away. You do have to be going above 65-ish, maybe 70 kilometers an hour. I think that's about 40 miles an hour. But It does the exact same job as the mild hybrid system in the Mercedes-Benz. Fuel economy in this Volvo S60 is a little bit better than the one in the Mercedes-Benz. This S60 with all-wheel drive is rated for 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 6.9 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway. And between the two, it's with this car that I've been averaging better fuel economy numbers in the real world. Dynamics-wise, it feels like a normal Mercedes-Benz vehicle. Steering is very sharp, but not really a whole lot of feedback to your fingertips. And it does have 4MATIC all-wheel drive, so it is a rear-biased all-wheel drive system. It feels pretty sprightly around corners, but then again, this type of Mercedes-Benz vehicle is more focused towards luxury and providing a easy driving experience when you're just commuting to and from work. However, there is one thing about this car that I absolutely hate. Detest is probably an even better word. And that has to do with the brakes. Actually, specifically the brake pedal. The brakes themselves are very strong. There's nobody behind me, and oh, yeah, they're very strong. But it's the brake pedal that I have an issue with. For the first 20% or so, it feels like as though you're Jesus and you're trying to step on water. It provides absolutely no feedback and no resistance whatsoever. It's only when you press further down on the brake pedal do you get that face-ripping deceleration. And because of that, it is really difficult to arrive at a smooth stop. It always feels like as though you're going like this and just, too much, no, too much, It's so frustrating. This is the worst brake pedal feeling that I've ever come across. Now, I understand that Mercedes-Benz is trying to tie in the whole braking system with the adaptive cruise control and the emergency braking, but it doesn't work. Other manufacturers do make it work, and they actually still have a normal feeling brake pedal, but for some reason in this Mercedes C300, it is just awful. It's ruining the whole driving experience of this car, in my opinion. As for the driving dynamics of the Volvo S60, it doesn't feel quite as sharp as the Mercedes-Benz C300, but on a twisty road like this, it doesn't feel like I'm having any less fun in this S60 than I am in the Mercedes C300. Steering is very sharp, just like the Mercedes, but again, no real feedback to your fingertips. And the all-wheel drive system is more front-biased in this S60 than rear-biased in the C300. However, the biggest difference between the two is that the brake pedal in this S60 is absolutely normal. The brakes themselves are very strong. There's nobody behind me, and yep, that's a good brake test. But when you arrive at a stop, you can actually do it smoothly. The brake pedal does provide feedback and resistance as soon as you start to apply any sort of pressure to it with your foot. So mainly because of the difference in the brake pedals, it's the reason why I've always found myself reaching for the Volvo key every time that I needed to commute to work or just do errands. I haven't been reaching for that Mercedes-Benz key all that often this week. Between the two, it's hard to say which one has a more comfortable ride. The suspension in the Mercedes C300 is a little bit more absorbent at soaking up bumps in the road, but the seats in the Volvo feel a bit more supportive and softer, which also aids in the ride comfort. In addition, both cars are quiet on daily commutes. The engines hardly ever shout, wind noise is not too evident even on highways, but road noise is present in both. Thankfully, it's not too intrusive into the cabin. Now on the inside of the Mercedes-Benz C300, visually it looks fantastic. It's taking a lot of its inspiration from the new Mercedes-Benz S-Class. So it has the same touchscreen that just flows into the center console. It uses the same controls for the seat on the door panels, and it would have the same steering wheel, but this particular demo vehicle has the AMG styling package, which is why it has an AMG style steering wheel. Now, like I said, visually it looks really good, but I hate it. And it has nothing to do with the looks. I hate the fact that all the controls now are either capacitive touch or they are built into the touchscreen. Like the climate controls, for example. They're always going to be right here at the very bottom of the touchscreen, but What was wrong with the actual physical buttons and toggle switches of the previous generation? This feels so much more distracting when you're driving because you can't actually feel each individual button. But this is just my opinion. Personally, I don't like it, but for you, it might be different. Also, this car does have a lot more voice commands, but I'm actually curious, how many of you actually use voice commands to control different functions of your vehicle? Let me know in the comments. Yes, the Volvo S60 also incorporates a lot of its functions into the touchscreen, but at least some of the other controls, albeit very few of them, are not capacitive touch controls. The steering wheel buttons, for example, you don't need to swipe them in order to use them. Or the radio volume. It's a big knob in the center, not some capacitive control that you have to swipe or continuously press to change the volume. Visually, it's definitely not as stunning to look at as it is in the Mercedes, but it is just a little bit more user-friendly. As for space, the Volvo has loads of legroom in the front seats, more than in the Mercedes. Here in the Mercedes, it actually has more headroom than in the Volvo, and on paper at least it's supposed to have less legroom, but at 6'4", I still have plenty of space for my long legs. So overall, the new C-Class is pretty spacious up here in the front seats. Let's go check out the back seats now. Both of these cars have an identical amount of leg space in those back seats. My legs are touching the back of the front seats in both of them behind my driving position. However, I don't feel too squished. But just like the front, the C300 has a tiny bit more headroom, though it's not that much. It's only a 10mm difference. The biggest difference in terms of interior volume is in the trunks. The Mercedes has 455 liters of space, whereas the Volvo has to make do with 392 liters of cargo volume. Both of the seats can fold down, but the S60s are 60-40 with a little pass-through in the middle, while the C300 has 40-20-40 split folding rear seats. The 2022 Mercedes-Benz C300 is the more expensive of the two. It starts at $56,700 Canadian, with the 2022 Volvo S60 B5 starting at $52,750 Canadian. As equipped, the C300 is $68,650 Canadian, while the Volvo is $63,300 Canadian. They are both equipped with similar features such as surround view cameras, panoramic sunroofs, heated seats in all four corners, heated steering wheels, wireless phone chargers, and so on. What about the exterior design? Well, the Volvo S60 came out in 2019, I believe it was, with this styling, and now in 2022, almost 2023, it still looks fresh as a daisy. I can only imagine this car with tinted windows and black alloy wheels and maybe a 1-inch drop. How good would that look? As for the Mercedes-Benz, well, it kind of looks like an A-Class or an S-Class or maybe an E-Class. The new C-Class just looks like a slightly bigger or slightly smaller version of another Mercedes-Benz vehicle. It's great for brand recognition because as soon as you see it, you know it's a Mercedes-Benz. But you don't know which model it is unless you're a gearhead like myself. And even then, even I sometimes get it wrong. So the C-Class just feels like it lost a little bit of its uniqueness, which is why I much prefer to be looking at a Volvo outside my window rather than a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. The IIHS gave the 2022 Volvo S60 a Top Safety Pick Plus award with good crash test results and superior marks for the advanced driver and safety aids. And the Mercedes-Benz C300 also received a Top Safety Pick Plus award. It too scored well in crash tests, and it also received top marks for the advanced driver and safety aids. And finally, both of these vehicles have the same warranties. 4 years or 80,000 kilometers new vehicle and powertrain, whichever comes first. In the United States, it's 4 years or 50,000 miles. So between these two cars, which one would I pick? That's a very easy choice. It would be the Volvo S60. I do like the engine in the new Mercedes-Benz, especially the EQ system. I think it's one of the best ones out there. The interior is spacious and really nice to look at. But therein lies part of the problem why I don't really like this car that much. All of the controls on the inside are capacitive touch or touchscreen controls, and I really don't like that. I much prefer physical buttons, but that's just a personal preference. It might be different for you. The biggest reason why I don't like this car has to do with the brakes. These are some of the weirdest feeling brakes that I've ever come across, and that just ruins the whole driving dynamics of this car for me. Whereas the Volvo, on the other hand, it has normal feeling brakes. The new engine is much smoother and much quieter than the old T5 and even the T6. The interior is still spacious, it still looks pretty good, and I actually really like how this one looks. It turns more heads than this one. But that's just my opinion. What about yours? Which one would you pick? Or would you pick one of the other luxury sedans like the BMW 3 Series or Audi A4 or Lexus IS or Genesis G70? Let me know in the comments. If you want to know more about either of these two cars, I wrote a comparison review of them over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner right up there. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck or most likely an SUV. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next